So we have some pretty big Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 news to talk about. We got 2 new images yesterday, as well as some more information in the official Poppy Playtime Discord, including this cryptic message that something is coming soon. All of that coming up on today's video, but before we get into that, if you're wondering where I've been, I will leave a pinned comment down below explaining why I took another short unplanned break from YouTube, but too long didn't read. I've been sick and it's been affecting my voice. My voice keeps going, so if in this video my voice does break a little bit, I'm sorry. I'm struggling. This is the best that I can do. But we have some stuff that I would like to talk about. I also want to make it clear that yes, I do have a theory in the works for Little Nightmares 3. But again, with the stuff that I've been dealing with, it's made it a little bit hard for me to get through that video. And the video is quite big, so I want to make sure that video is done right. But I do have a theory for the Sounds of Nightmares, if you're a Little Nightmares fan. And I also might be looking at Bunny Graveyard, because everyone keeps telling me that I need to look at this one as well. So that's kind of what's coming up. But of course, my main focus right now will be on Poppy Playtime Chapter 3, considering that this is my most anticipated release of this year, and it's still supposedly coming in 2023, which is kind of near the end. We're in October, we're nearly at the end of the year already, so this is something that is coming up soon. This is the next big thing that we will be covering on the channel, and so of course this is going to get my focus, but there will be Little Nightmares stuff as well coming, so don't worry about that. So with all of that out of the way, let's look at these 2 new images. So like I say, we got 2 brand new images for Chapter 3, and these are confirmed. And we also have some information in the Discord that I want to talk about as well. But these images are pretty interesting. This is a completely different area from the factory of what we've seen so far. We know that Chapter 3 is going to take place in the Playcare. We don't know if the whole chapter is going to be there, but we know that at least a significant portion of the chapter is going to be in the Playcare, and this does look like a very good look at one of those areas. There's quite a lot of little things in this one, nothing major, but I want to give my thoughts and opinions on some of those little minor things. So this does look like a bedroom. This is the first thing that you can probably see in this image, is that this does look like a bedroom. You can see these beds on the floor, which this one kind of looks like bunk beds, which would make sense. If you look at this wallpaper, I think these were where the beds would be lined up. But this area is completely destroyed, maybe just over time, or maybe a toy came here and wrecked this, who knows. But there are a couple of things left behind that give us some important and interesting information that I want to talk about. The first one is quite obviously this crib. Now, a lot of people have talked about this. This very much looks like a crib to me. It could be a crib, or it could be some sort of, ride or something like that. But I really do think that in this room with other beds, this is more likely a child's crib, which is already kind of disturbing. We've talked about the idea that the orphanage program for Poppy Playtime went, I think, from age 2, I think. It was a very young age anyway, I'll have to look back. But it was a very young age all the way up until teenagers. And something that we may not have considered up until this point is that when the factory fell, there were probably plenty of orphans still here. And if some of those were babies, that makes this even more dark. Now, the developers have said that this chapter is going to be the darkest one so far. And well, yeah, this does seem to be painting a picture here that this is going to be a very, very dark chapter indeed. And I do have to wonder what happened to those younger children. Now, what makes this even more interesting is one of the theories all the way back from Chapter 1 was the idea that people were being put into these bodies, these bigger bodies as we now know. And we didn't really consider the idea that maybe not everyone was put in voluntarily. We talked before about the idea that Huggy for some reason can't speak, but Mommy can. There could be a number of reasons for that, but it also begs the question, well, what happened to these younger children? Were they just put into toys, or did they meet their end another way? Like, who knows? I think this is something that we're going to get more hints to in Chapter 3, and the idea that this crib is here, I think, is massively hinting to that. We also see this character here, which looks like some kind of rabbit. Now, you could make an argument that this is Bunzo Bunny, but I don't think it is, with the color palette being very different. In fact, I think this rabbit is more like the one we saw in the teaser trailer, or the latest trailer, I guess. So I think that this is definitely a different rabbit, and this kind of hints that we are going to be seeing new characters in Chapter 3 that are based around more younger children's toys. And we've talked about this before, the unicorn, the duck, all of this. It kind of makes sense they would be younger themed toys, which in itself could be incredibly creepy, having these younger children's toys. I've talked before about an army of mini Huggies. Well, maybe we're going to see that, just not Huggies. But speaking of our good friend Huggy, there might be yet another hint in this picture that we are going to see Huggy Wuggy again. If you look behind this, which this looks like a gas canister potentially, which is another big hint, you know, we know by now gas is going to be a big thing in chapter 3. We all know that. But behind that, there is this thing. Now, I originally thought this was a barrel of Huggies, like a giant barrel of Huggies, but I'm not entirely sure whether this is a pillow or whether this is some sort of barrel or container. But either way, the important thing is that the color palette and this part here really does look like Huggy Wuggy's arm. Now, again, I've said this before, one of my biggest theories for chapter 3 is that we're going to see Huggy Wuggy again. And the way that I think it's going to happen is we are going to see a heavily damaged, much more aggressive version of the Huggy from chapter 1 since we dropped him. And I think this is going to be almost like Poppy Playtime's Springtrap. I'm not an expert on FNAF, please don't sue me if I got that wrong. But you know what I mean? Like, I think this is going to be Poppy Playtime's version of Springtrap, the one that is the most cursed and damaged and the one that keeps cropping up. That's going to be my guess. And I think this is just yet another in a long line of hints that have been showing Huggy Wuggy. And again, we've talked about the idea that there are probably multiple big Huggies in this factory, but I do think that we are going to see a grudge match between the Huggy from chapter 1, who's probably even more out for blood now that we damaged him. That's my big guess. Around the room, really, there's not really all that much else. These things here seem to be very childlike play area, soft play kind of things, which would make total sense if they're keeping orphans down here. It would make sense that they would want to make the experience as fun and exciting for them to keep them as happy as possible. Something that I think the chapter is hinting that when they weren't happy, they got, well, made to be put to sleep. So that's an interesting little thing there. We have this box over here, which looks like a toy chest, which wouldn't be surprised in a factory full of toys that they gave some toys to the orphans. Wouldn't be surprising at all. But that also could be a minor hint that we could see Boxy Boo in chapter 3, potentially. And then finally, I think the final interesting thing, well, one of two interesting things, should I say, is that we have all of these papers scattered around on the floor. These could be related to the case files in the ARG. Seems to be odd that these are kept here, but there we go. So something that's hinting we're going to be looking for notes and paper just like we did in chapter 2. And then we have this part over here, which I can't tell if this is just bad compression. This image isn't the highest quality we've had from Mob, or if this is supposed to be a subtle hint of something else. Now, some people have said that this does look like Huggy Wuggy's hands, and I do think there is a little bit of blue in here, so maybe, again, maybe it's a little hint. Maybe they added that little scrambled image in there to hint, or it could just be, you know, an artifact or compression from the image. But these vents do really remind me of the vents from chapter 1, which again is just sort of painting this picture in my mind that we're going to be revisiting certain themes from previous chapters and maybe certain characters. One final thing I do want to note about this image is, again, if this is a bedroom, I do find it horrendously creepy that there is a ceiling up here that is completely fenced off with a door up here, looking like the scientists would look at them from above and monitor them, which makes sense as a scientist, but it's still kind of creepy. These children were being watched as they sleep, which isn't the creepiest thing that we've seen in this factory, but still kind of odd. Oh, and one final thing that I did forget. Sorry, I told you, I'm sick, I'm struggling. But anyway, one final thing I did forget is if you zoom in here, it does kind of look like gas. I don't know if this is just supposed to be dust or light, but it does kind of look like gas is leaking here, which again, we know gas is going to be a big part of chapter 3. So interesting stuff. I'm sure there's probably other stuff that I've missed in this image, but these were the things that stuck out to me and they're already getting me excited. Now we have a second image. This one is kind of weird, honestly, considering that we know that chapter 3 is going to be in the play care where all of the orphans are. This machine or whatever here seems really odd. Now, at the first glance, it looks like some sort of machinery for the creation of toys, right? It looks like something that is being flattened here. But what I don't really understand by this is why this would be anywhere near the play care. Like, why would we have this around where all the orphans are? This seems incredibly dangerous. Unless this is related to the tests that we saw in chapter 2. We know in chapter 2 that the scientists were testing these orphans. But again, why would we have such a dangerous looking game here? So if it's not a game, what is it? Like, what are they flattening here? These giant things that obviously come down and flatten something. I really don't know. But then again, we have these scattered files around. Now, some of these could be cardboard boxes that have just rotted, but it does again look like these files are scattered everywhere. It seems like somebody had a hold of these files and either dropped them or were scattering them. And I do think we're going to be looking for these files as we go around chapter 3. There is also these pipes in the background, which again, I think is just alluding once more to the gas. But yeah, this one, I really can't quite figure out what it's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be a game? Is it supposed to be part of the factory? Maybe this is implying that we're going to go to other parts of the factory, not just the play care. And we have been told that chapter 3 is going to be longer, so potentially. But this was pretty much all I could find in this image. Again, there's probably other things hidden in here that I'm just too sick to see right now. But we have these. We also have some information from the Discord. So yesterday, Zach was posting some new information about the Discord. Now, somebody has already asked, people have been speculating that we were going to get a trailer on the 2-year anniversary of Poppy Playtime. Now, Zach did actually reply to this and say that that was when they intended to release the chapter, no less, which is crazy, but obviously it's not going to release then because we haven't even had the trailer yet, but they want to do more polish on the game. They said that they've decided to delay the game to give it a little bit more polish, which is totally fine and acceptable. I would rather that the game came out as polished as possible. More polish means a better gaming experience, and if that means having to wait another month or so, I'm fine with that. But it's very interesting that they plan to release it on that date. And again, if they're in the polishing stages now, that does imply that we could get the chapter very, very soon. Now, they did say not that long ago that they plan to release it in winter of 2023, which officially starts at the end of December. I don't think that's what they meant. I think it's going to be a November or December release. I'm really hoping for a November one. But again, whenever the game comes out, I'll be happy to play it in a better state. Now, I also have this new post from Zach as well. Stay tuned. We'll have an announcement about Chapter 3 coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed or signed up for our newsletter and our website to get the news as soon as it drops. Now, with this surprise announcement and the new images yesterday, I do once again think that they are now pushing for the release date. We had the hype around the trailer, and I think that makes sense. But now they are pushing the hype for the actual release date. And I think we are getting very, very close for that indeed, which I'm very excited about because I want more content to make. And like I say, I know I took a little bit of a break, but I'm trying to conserve my energy for Chapter 3 because I think this is going to be the biggest event of the year for me anyway. So I'm very, very excited. Anyway, those are just my quick unscripted opinions. Like I said, I'm really struggling at the moment with health stuff, and I'll talk about that in the pinned comment. But these are just my quick opinions and thoughts about the images that were released yesterday. I'm very excited for Chapter 3. I will be making content, and I hope you are too. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.